Hi, welcome back to the Save It for Parts channel. In this video, I'm doing something of a subsurface survey of my own backyard. Now, according to my research, this little corner of the yard actually has a lot of history behind it. It was a saloon back in the 1880s, and that burned down and then was rebuilt. And then it was a tobacco store for a while, and reportedly some local boys robbed the tobacco store and hid a number of pipes and cigars in a sewer. Now, since the sewer wasn't built for another few decades, that could mean that they hid them in a local privy. So privies tend to be an interesting place to dig for bottles, because after 100 years or so, the sewage just turns into nice black dirt, and it's just perfectly safe to dig through. And there was an early report from one of the owners that they supposedly found gold in the well. Now, this is not the right area for gold, so that is probably a hoax, because the geology is all wrong. But it's kind of funny to have your own mystery treasure story right in your own backyard. I kind of want to find out, where are these features in my yard? And since I can't currently afford a ground-penetrating radar, I'm going to have to do it the old-fashioned way, by sticking a pole into the dirt and seeing if it encounters anything interesting underground. I've got my soil probe with a sharp end on the bottom and a nice handle on the top to shove it into the ground. I've got some measuring tools to lay out a grid in the yard, and I'm planning to do points possibly every foot, but a 1 foot by 1 foot grid would be quite a bit in the yard, so I'm going to see how that goes, and if I get bored with the 1 by 1 foot grid, I might go to something a little larger and then come back to any interesting areas later. And when we built our garden pond, we ran into some of the foundation from that 1800s house, so I'm suspecting that the privy and the well are probably behind that. So I'm going to start with one section of the backyard and lay out a grid and try to use the soil poker to see what's down there. Alright, I'm going to call this section of the yard done. It's been a couple days, but I've pretty much gridded out the backyard, and I've already found a couple interesting areas that might be some kind of a former privy over here. At least it's a soft spot, so somebody has apparently dug there in the past. And then there's a harder area up here along the fence. Highly accurate shorthand here for relative ground consistency. This is what I think the ground surface looks like at the edge of the property. I think the original grade was this kind of gentle hill, and they leveled it out with sand and sod. That's just the impression I get from feeling that probe go into the soil. It first goes through some relatively stiff sod, and then it goes into this nice soft sand. And as I get further into the yard, the bottom of the sand seems to creep up. So I think I'm hitting maybe that original ground surface as I go inward. And I've put this into a grid form, or map, that I can overlay onto the map of my backyard. You can see I start out doing a sample every 1 foot by 1 foot, and that got old pretty quickly, so I went to a 3 foot by 3 foot grid so that it wouldn't take me all year to finish this. This to me looks like a wall, and we found some other walls over here. These are tree roots, because there is a tree trunk right here. These, I'm thinking, are mostly rocks, because this back area is a little more rocky than the rest of the yard. Now, something else that I'm interested in is a soft area right in here. So that's another area that I want to come in later and do a 1 by 1 foot grid and see if I can determine what's underneath there. But those smaller grids and any follow-up to this is going to have to be another video because I'm pretty much out of time on this one and I'm running out of interest. And I think I'm going to move on to some other project at the moment, and I'll come back to this a little bit later. Now, I don't expect to find gold, and I don't expect to find stolen loot from 1890s robberies in my backyard, but I have found some interesting things digging around, including some early bottles, maybe from that saloon, and some charred embers from one of the fires, and we even found a spent bullet casing, which kind of hints at some rowdy times at the saloon, so that's kind of fun to find. And hopefully we'll have a follow-up video seeing if I find anything else, and if I have time to dig some test holes, maybe we can find out what's down there. So stay tuned for that. Thank you for watching, and we'll see you next time.